you guys, some weeks ago, the Swedish Migration Agency came with a proposal that will now mean that people who are seeking asylum in Sweden will not have the freedom to arrange their own accommodation. When you seek asylum in Sweden, you can actually arrange your own accommodation and you live wherever you want to live. But now, with a new proposal that will be in effective from next year, March 2025, is that if you seek asylum in Sweden, you are no longer allowed to choose accommodation for yourself and you have to remain in the Swedish Migration Agency accommodation. Now, what are the reasons the Swedish Migration Agency or the Swedish, together with the Swedish government, what are the reasons for this arrangement? And I want to read it for you guys. They say that asylum seekers should, as general rule, only be entitled to financial assistance during the asylum seeking period if they stay in the asylum accommodation they have been assigned to. So it means that if you seek asylum in Sweden and now you decide to live on your own, it means that you don't get any benefits from them. It means that you are on your own. And now the question is, how do you survive? Okay, unless you look for a job. So that's the basic rules. And then the Swedish Migration Agency will have the possibility to inspect asylum seekers' accommodation and personal storage spaces in the asylum accommodation to verify that the asylum seeker is staying in the assigned accommodation. So they are going to be doing proper control to check that actually you are living in that asylum seeker accommodation, and if not, then you're gonna lose a lot of benefits and also it's not gonna be looking good on your case. Then a resident permit application may be considered as withdrawn for asylum seekers who do not stay in accommodation and who do not keep the Swedish Migration Agency informed of their residential address. Yes, you guys, that is what I just said, that they can withdraw your asylum seeker resident permit if you are not living in that accommodation. Now let's say they assigned you this accommodation and then you left the place and then you are living in another accommodation. After they have done the investigation, it means that they can actually withdraw your resident permit and also if you don't keep the Swedish Migration Agency informed on where you are or your new address. So another proposal, in the same proposal, is that the Swedish government want to introduce a statutory obligation for asylum seekers to take part in introduction to Swedish society. Yeah, it's like a course or it's just an introduction. Like as an asylum seeker, as a new person, you need to understand the Swedish society. How does Sweden works? What do you need to know for you to settle in? And I think this is very helpful, but the fact that it's obligatory, like you have to do it. I know of certain countries, like for example, that before you get their passport, or I think before you get your residence, you need to do an exam. So I know that Sweden had actually some years ago spoken about that people have to be doing like an exam to see if they really know about Sweden and all that. And they also proposed the issue of language, that before you get your citizenship, I think you need to understand the Swedish language. And this we can see in other countries like Finland. Before you get your Finnish passport, you need to do a language test. Yeah. So why is it necessary for asylum seekers to live in the place where they are to live? They are like provided the accommodation provided by the Migration Swedish Agency. The main reason, actually, they were talking about overcrowding. It seems that maybe people now decide to live where they want to live, and then it brings the issue of overcrowding, and also they are talking also about the issue of safety. And another thing they are talking about is that if you are an asylum seeker and maybe during your asylum seeking process your application was rejected and maybe they need you to go back home to your country, it becomes very difficult to get you if you are living in your own address that you have organized. And now in this process now it makes many people live in Sweden illegally. So the Swedish Migration Agency is talking about them having it easy, like if they want you to go back to your country they can actually do it without looking for you. But most of the cases is that once people get a negative decision, most people tend to run away, of course. And now it becomes the issue of illegal immigrants, which Sweden doesn't really like. Okay, so I just thought that this is a very important update, and it starts from 1st March 2025. So if you are thinking of seeking asylum in Sweden, then just know that there are new rules that are coming and you'll be required to be living in the Swedish Migration Agency accommodation, and you might not be able to arrange your own accommodation. And they are also talking about, segregation. It's also good for the asylum seekers, and yeah, to help them in coming into Sweden. Social exclusion, you don't feel excluded. And that's what the Minister of Migration, Johan Fassel, said. He said that the objective is to bring order to the reception process for more efficient asylum investigation, shorter processing times, and reducing segregation and social exclusion. Yeah, so that's another point that he made, which is very, very important. I know in the past people will feel like, oh, living in the asylum accommodation, the Swedish Migration Agency accommodation, is gonna limit you. I think people feel like you cannot integrate, you don't have contact, and you are only living with people that you know, or you people that are seeking asylum together. That means you don't know how the outside world, how Sweden looks like, and they feel why people choose to arrange their own accommodation, so that they'll be able to make contacts, they'll be able to look for jobs. Yeah, I think those are the main reasons that people want to have, such freedom, and they also want to have freedom to be, moving up and about. But now when you are living in one place, that means it becomes very difficult to be traveling, because they are going to be controlling whether you are in the accommodation that they provided for you or not. So you guys, how do you feel about this? Because very soon it's not gonna be easy. You just be living in that place that you are appointed to live, so you don't have the possibility of arranging your own accommodation and traveling anyhow you want, because they're gonna be controlling whether you are living in that accommodation that is provided for you. So guys, these are the new rules that concern Swedish asylum seekers, and we know that it has been stricter and stricter rules when it comes to seeking asylum in Sweden. So this is very important, and these are the things that you should know before you decide to seek asylum in Sweden. So you guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and I see you in my next one. Bye for now.